Hello again. It's a Saturday night. I'm in alone with a couple of bottles going, so I will again set a bad example and chug slowly away on a San Miguel while I do a roundup of recent acquisitions. Not having been able to do the customary thing of physically going to outlets and seeing what I can find. It has all been online acquisitions, but I haven't done badly these last few weeks with it. Firstly, this I would say novelisation, but in fact it's pretty much the screenplay of the 1973 two-part made-for-television rendering of Frankenstein, which was scripted by none other than Christopher Isherwood. That is, that Christopher Isherwood of Cabaret, or one of his works was adapted as Cabaret, written together with Don. I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce this surname right. Don Baccardi, who I believe was Isherwood's partner. So yeah, not something that comes up often. The film, last I checked, is available to see on YouTube. I would recommend it if you haven't. It's quite an original take on the Frankenstein theme, and this may be one I do a more full episode on when we get around to it. Secondly, the novelisation. This is not the screenplay. This is an actual novelisation. This used to come onto late night television fairly regularly. It's become a bit of a kind of a forgotten item now. The film and the book, but it is a kind of a serviceable disaster movie in that late 70s fashion, which didn't really sort of cause Steven Spielberg to lose any sleep ultimately. It has a certain charm, and I couldn't really turn down a cover like that. So again, maybe I'll visit that in more detail at some point. Next, it has occurred to me that I could be doing a kind of themed sub-series almost along the lines of I never realised there was a sequel to that. There are some quite odd sequels out there. This is the sequel to Westworld. Michael Crichton's. I'm not sure what year the original was. The book of the novel of Westworld, incidentally, is very hard to get hold of. The very cheapest I've seen it for, and this was unusually cheap for it, was 70 quid. So, it's not my birthday yet. But people tend to forget that film, which incidentally is kind of a landmark in its own, predictive of technology and also Terminator. The original often gets the credit as an inspiration for Terminator, and there's a certain amount in common with you can't negotiate with Yul Brynner's character in that. He's coming for you. There's no way around it. Implacable, possibly, is the word. But anyway, but few people realise there was a sequel to it, Future World, and it's generally acknowledged as a bit of a dog of a film. But we'll see with this. I've not really got into it. I mean, it's worst case, it's a nice curiosity item to have, but anyway, we'll see. Next, this doesn't come up often. The novelisation from the 1970, I think it was 75 or 6 series, which also sort of David McCallum there. He was also in the Frankenstein film I mentioned earlier. Not much in common with the Wells story, but interesting series in its right. This novel basically covers the pilot episode and nothing after that. But again, maybe one to get into further detail about. It's a series I remember quite fondly as a kid. Next, I didn't realise there'd been a novel of this until a friend pointed it out. He had it on his shelves. Thank you, Phil. The novel of the 1960. Oh God, off the top of my head, I don't know. 1967 film Privilege, which not everybody appreciated at the time it came out. It got some fairly negative feedback, but it's one of those classic one of those great 60s cult films that it had Paul Jones of Manfred Mann in the lead role, and again, I think I'd like to do a full episode on this because I think it is deserving of it. But as a précis, it's somewhere between. It's kind of a rock opera in the vein of 1984. It's quite dystopian. Next, the Shout and Other Stories. This is a film starring a very, very young John Hurt and Alan Bates there in the lead role. The film pops up fairly often on Talking Pictures channel, who incidentally have been a bit of a lifesaver for many of us, I think, during this lockdown situation. So thank you, Talking Pictures, for the sterling work in curating, obscure and forgotten films. But this book is the source of, the first story in here is the source of the plot of that film. And there's not a writer I knew of before, but interesting stuff. Again, time permitting, I'd like to visit all these in detail, really. Next up, another novelisation of a David Essex film. I covered Stardust a few weeks ago. Again, Talking Pictures fairly often show the film of this, and I do find myself enjoying these David Essex features. I wasn't, as a kid, I wasn't necessarily a fan musically, but I kind of appreciate it more now. But solid, he does a solid job in the films he's in, and this one's no exception. I've not got far into the novel yet, but I'm quite pleased to find it. Finally, this I found in the street. The way people leave stuff outside charity shops that are shut, and I will go and put a couple of quid in the box when they're open, so I don't want to hear any shit about stealing stuff from the street outside of charity shops. Come on, you've done it. But anyway, look, I've not visited Clive Barker's Books of Blood in many years. This was kind of a late 80s, early 90s kind of staple. I think late 80s. I mean, this edition, it's almost apparent from the typography that this is an early 90s edition. There's something about that compressed font there that screams 90s about it. But so it's a compendium of Barker's short stories, kind of pulled together by this outer narrative of this curious situation going on with the psychic investigator and her supposed, the guy's going to be some sort of psychic phenomenon. In fact, he's not, but weird stuff happens when the investigation sort of moves into full swing. So nice to see that again. It's really enjoyed picking through these. There's a few of these went on to be, because there's the Midnight Meat Train, which went on to be a fairly recent film. I think Vinnie Jones is in it. Which the film treatment is fairly well spoken of. So I will go and give that charity shop a couple of quid once they're reopened. But in the meantime, finders keepers. Also, a couple of mentions are in order. I'm very grateful for the shout out I got from Hey Little Thrifter, which got result. I got more followers, so thank you. If you're not familiar with her channel, she's big on the horror and well worth having a look. So I'll post the link. Thank you, Hey Little Thrifter. That did wonders. Also, obviously, recently we've been reading a lot of obituaries of people that have been, culturally significant in our various worlds. Someone I got to know through musical circles, Walter Lure, who was the guitarist with Johnny Thunder's Heartbreakers, who passed away last month. I've got to know him a little bit over the last, I suppose, 20 years odd. And sadly, I never did get to discuss fiction with Walter, but it's mentioned in Nina Antonia's Johnny Thunder's biography, In Cold Blood, that there's an interview with Walter in there that dates from the 80s, and he mentions that he's a fan, or at least at the time, he's a fan of Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire, and his own book. I haven't seen a copy yet. I'm not sure if it's got distribution over here, but his own memoirs were published, I think, in the spring. I think it's called To Hell and Back. Walter Lure. Written with David Thompson. Yeah, I'm very sad to see him go. So Waldo, as he was known familiarly. Anyway, I do hope everybody is keeping safe as they can out there. Obviously, we're not through this yet, so I don't have any illuminating advice on this other than stay safe. Do what you got to do. We always have books throughout this. We have our books, so let's hang in there. And thank you for checking in, and see you in the next one. Cheers.